I think he's even bigger now, $40 million net worth. So, I mean, this guy is like, he's really, really high level.
And it's because I knew how to sell. So sales was really the means. And so when I started making some money, just like anybody, I didn't know anything about real estate. So I was like, I'm gonna buy a rental home.
How's it gonna affect real estate? How do the decisions our politicians make affect?
And I was in multi-level marketing in the 90s. The FTC decided to regulate companies back in that late 90s era.
It might be for the investor that has a couple of rentals and it just wants to scale too, and just hear like an unpacking of a story of a gentleman that just absolutely changed his life.
And my parents freaked out. They couldn't even believe it. I was wrestling in college, I had scholarships, wasn't paying for it.
What your real estate portfolio is comprised of, and then maybe we can kind of retroactively go back and work our way to how we got there.
So I started building ground up in 2018. Now this year's been our real big year. Last year, we were hoping to pull out $100 million out of the ground last year, and we did.
I forget the year that you transitioned in this, but maybe you could talk to it. But now don't you turn distressed hotels into multifamily apartments?
And the zoning was a nightmare. It was taking us like multiple years to try to get these things done. They fought us.
Besides being an absolute savage like you are, like what's the secret sauce? Maybe there isn't any, but what do you think?
I figured out what I needed to do for the next couple of years. What I thought was going to be 1 year, it's taking me 2 years.
Welcome back to The Weekly Juice. As always, it's your boys, Ryan and Corey, here with another episode. Today, we interviewed Jerome Maldonado. He's a highly successful real estate investor, business owner, coach, and speaker. Kind of blew us away in this episode. He's got his hands in a lot of different things, from real estate to e-commerce. Fun fact, he
franchises, all types of stuff.
Yeah, he's a franchisee, but he also is on part owner of Radio Shack, Pier 1 Imports, and Models. He jumped in with Ty Lopez. So you guys have probably seen him on social media a ton of times talking about buying businesses. And it's just really cool that he's woven his investing web to the highest peak. Essentially, Ty is crushing it.
Yeah. I mean, he was talking about how he's like amassed a net worth. I don't know if it's now, but I think he's even bigger now, $40 million net worth. So, I mean, this guy is like, he's really, really high level. And the cool thing is he got started in multi-level marketing, which has like a really bad rap for people that know what it is, like network marketing, right? And I actually had a background in that. My dad was involved in it too. So it was kind of cool to like understand how much he learned from that. He said he lost everything and then he was able to rebuild it back up because of the skill set that he developed in multi-level marketing, which is invaluable, right? He was able to take his, he was talking about jet skis and Range Rovers and stuff that he lost, and he built it all the way back up, and he owns a ton of real estate. I just thought it was a really good episode because he understands business. He's been doing it for so long, almost 30 years, as he mentions in the episode. So what he really does is he goes into essentially like, what's the state of the market? Like what's up with this recession? What's happening with that? How's it going to affect real estate? How do the decisions our politicians make affect the state of the United States? How does what's happening in China affect what's happening in the United States? So if you want like a kind of state of the union address from somebody who really gets it, I think this is a great episode as a more like high level, like, oh, how should I pivot what I'm doing based on that? And we didn't even mention e-commerce. So it was an episode that talked about a lot.
Yeah, I think it encompassed a lot that we are super interested in too. And then it might be for the investor that has a couple of rentals and it just wants to scale too, and just hear like an unpacking of a story of a gentleman that just absolutely changed his life. And he's not even 50 years old yet. And he has so much.
I was like, our minds are blown. I was like, dang, this guy's really crushing it. And he's like high energy. He's all over the place. So it's a good episode to just like get pumped up on. And if you really want to get pumped up, if you're watching this, we got new mic arms. So check this thing out. Our studio is coming together, man.
Yes,
check this thing out. So, yeah, man, without further ado, let's bring in Jerome.
Let's do it. All right, Jerome, officially welcome to the Weekly Juice podcast. Corey and I are very excited to have you on the show, and we really appreciate your time. So thanks for joining us.
Corey, Ryan, thanks for having me. Appreciate you, gentlemen.
Absolutely. If you could, give us a little brief background on who you are and then how you got into real estate investing.
Sure. So Jerome Maldonado, I got into real estate on accident, in all honesty. I didn't really go into it as a methodical, like, hey, I'm going to be like this real estate guy. I know a lot of people today, it's like sexy today, like, I'm going to be a multifamily investor and I'm going to be an investor in real estate. I wasn't like that for me at all. I really got into it as a means for protection. I really don't, as much as people consider me to be a real estate professional now, I really consider myself to be more of a business entrepreneur than anything. I've owned a lot of stuff over the years and a lot of businesses and companies. And so I'm really just a business guy. And I was in multi-level marketing in the 90s. The FTC decided to regulate companies back in that late 90s era. And we were one of quite a few companies that were in a misfortunate circumstance, and we got shut down. So I went in my young 20s from being one of the top money earners in direct sales and multi-level marketing, making over $20,000 a month. In those days was huge money, and one of the top distributors to zero overnight. And by sheer accident, I got into construction, literally by sheer accident. I had never really worked construction. I had done some little side gigs while I was in college. But that was my big barrier of entry into real estate, was when I got into construction. I ended up going back to school and to finish my last year of college, because I dropped out of college to pursue my career in multi-level marketing. And it was a great decision, best decision I ever made in my life. But then I went back to college, and that 1 year I started dibble-dabbling in construction, and I started making money. And so I started making big money pretty quick. And it's because I knew how to sell. So sales was really the means. And so when I started making some money, just like anybody, I didn't know anything about real estate. So I was like, I'm going to buy a rental home. And I bought one rental home, and then I bought a second rental home, just because I wanted to have something tangible, because I lost everything. In 1997, I'd overspent like most people do when they make money in their 20s, bought a bunch of dumb shit, Range Rovers and Harley Davidson motorcycles, boats and jet skis, and had a ski ray on the lift dock and a lake house over in Medina Lake in San Antonio. And I lost all that stuff. And I just didn't want to be in that position again. I wanted to have assets, something that I had tangible. And that was as simple as that. And I got into commercial real estate. And this is cool because most people, I didn't think about commercial real estate the way most investors do today. We didn't have the internet was barely something that was barely coming out in 1996. And this was 1997, moving into 98, 99. So the internet was really non-existent. So we didn't have all the luxuries of education at our fingertips like we all have today. I was building multi-level marketing in our direct sales company through training centers. And before I figured out how to make money as a distributor, I was leasing office space, because we weren't doing the Denny's thing or the sitting in a hotel selling a multi-level marketing opportunity. We did it that was like the latest and greatest. We were like the pinnacle of success. Our company was on the forefront of technology at that time. We were like the badass by renting training centers. And so we were the new age multi-level marketing company in the 90s. And so I rented training centers, and I didn't know how to pay for them because I couldn't afford it. So I rent desk space, just like the one I'm sitting on here. And I rent a full desk for $500 or half a desk for $250. And I would just get asses in chairs, and I get them to rent desk space from me. So I never paid a dime of rent ever. I got good at selling desk space before I did products for network marketing. And my lease was $2,000 a month, but I could make $5,000 a month renting desk space. So I had $2,500 a month. I had free desk rent and a free office, and I had $2,500 a month to live off of. So when I opened up the construction company, we had a little bit of success in our first 2 years. In 2000, I took that same concept to buying a building. I said, shit, I don't want to buy a building. I'm going to buy, if I have to pay rent, I just rather someone else pay for it for me. And I'll just buy an office bigger than I need. I'll store my equipment in the back. I'll take a little office and I'll rent the rest of it. And I'll make them pay for it for me. And it was as simple as that. I didn't even complicate it. That was all of it. It was if I did it with desk rent, I can do it with an office. And so I literally bought a strip mall that was 8,000 square feet. I took 1,000 square feet, and I took the back of the yard. I put a fence around it, built a shed in the back, and I leased the other 7,000 square feet. And that building, it's the building I'm sitting in right now today. I've owned this building since 2000, and this building's made me over $2 million of revenue in the last 20 years. So
this is amazing. I want to touch on the multi-level marketing actually really quick, because regardless of what the outcome was with those companies, I know for a fact that the skills that you learned in multi-level marketing has built you into the entrepreneur that you are today. Can you just talk about what got you into that? Because it has such a bad rap. And I know this because I was involved in a couple companies, and my father had a 20-year run in multi-level marketing. And I'm just curious on what you felt that taught you in order to take you to the next step into the real estate.
Friggin' everything. It taught me everything. I mean, it was the best education I could have ever gotten. It was the best decision for me to drop out of college. I was scared to death. I was I was in, but excited like hell. I was in pharmacy school. I had 1 year left of pharmacy school as the last bachelor's program. And my parents freaked out. They couldn't even believe it. I was wrestling in college, I had scholarships, wasn't paying for it. And I left my last year of college. And at the time, a bachelor's degree in pharmacy was $42,000 a year degree. It was the highest paying bachelor's degree that you could get in the mid 90s. That was it. That was like the thing to be. It was like the highest paying bachelor's degree. And so I was burnt. Because I'm dyslexic. I've always had to work hard in school. I've never been the smart kid. I've always had to work my ass off. It was just a goal of mine to go into the hardest degree and that's how I literally went into pharmacy. I was like, shit, man, I'm going to go into the hardest degree that I can. I'm going to prove to myself that I can do it. And I was burnt, man. I wasn't taking girls on dates during college. Between wrestling, school, and that was it. Like when I was in school, I was all I could do. I couldn't even afford to pick my head up or I'd fail. So I couldn't afford to work. I couldn't afford anything. So I was broke, and I was. You feel a little lonely, man. Like, I mean, I was never. Yeah. I was the type of guy that always, loved playing the field, and I was always, it was just a fun thing to do. I was a young kid, right? And so that ended that semester when I quit school, and I actually went back for one more semester. I was working as a pharmacy technician. I told them I had booked a trip to Cancun with student tours, and I just needed 1 week to revamp. And they told me if I left my internship that I'd have to find another one, that they went home my job for 1 week. And I gave them 2 months advance notice, and I kept giving them notice, trying to like plead with them, and they wouldn't do it. So I was like, screw you guys, I'm going. I left my job, and I said, when I got back, I was still wrestling, and I was starting to compete in bodybuilding. And I said, I'm just going to work in a gym all summer. I don't care if I sit back and just freaking click people. And I answered a health and fitness ad. And I got it. And I thought I was walking in to do something with health and fitness and in a gym. And I started selling vitamins and water filters in the 90s when there was no water filters on the shelf. I learned everything from that experience. That they talked about me making money off of other people's efforts, how to make money on other people's money. And that's all I needed to hear. I got it hook, line, and sinker. And there was people making $4,000 a month in their first month. That wasn't me, but I thought I could do it. And I went to work, man. And then I went back to school. Didn't have any success all summer. I worked for free all summer. And then I went back to school, and I was dibble dabbling with it my next semester. And then that December, when we got off of school for 30 days, I went and worked my ass off, and I got a $4,300 check, and I was done. I just said, I'm done with school. I'm moving. I'm going to school to do what I just did in this 1 month. I moved all the way to Virginia and opened up a training center in Virginia. And that was it. That was where I took off.
That's awesome. Yeah. I just wanted to touch on that. I think that's cool, but maybe we should fast forward to today in terms of your portfolio now. Just talk a little bit about what your real estate portfolio is comprised of, and then maybe we can kind of retroactively go back and work our way to how we got there.
Sure. So I don't own any single family home rentals anymore, although a big piece of our construction company was developing single family residential real estate. We still buy land and build a few houses, not very many. It's the smallest part of our business now. We, in the early 2000s, got into developing retail. And I got heavy into retail and office development. And in 2008, we took a beating. We didn't go out of business. We didn't lose no real estate, but I worked for free for 5 years after 2008 just to stabilize my assets, or what I thought was working for free. Because we actually landed up, that's a whole story in itself. But we started buying fourplexes and single family homes back in 2008 and 9 in Phoenix. And I put a conglomerate of 62 fourplexes, 62 units of fourplexes together, and 12 single family homes. And that portfolio, which cost me a few $100,000, turned into a $15 million asset that I still own today. And that asset is what got me into multifamily in 2016. Because I was like, poof, man, I wish I'd known this back when I was younger. So I did exactly what I did in retail. I bought a couple apartment complexes. I bought an 86 unit. I bought a 72 unit apartment complex in Phoenix. And then I said, well, shit, I'm going to build these things like I did in retail. So I started building them ground up in 2018. Now this year's been our real big year. Last year, we were hoping to pull out $100 million out of the ground last year. And we were shy of that. We got 78 million of multifamily apartments out of the ground last year, current market value. This year, we were hoping for $100 million, and we're at $180 million out of the ground already. And we still have the rest of the year to go. So we'll have over $200 million worth of development come out of the ground in 2000.
That's amazing. Did that when you said you got to that $15 million number, that $1 million asset worth, did you borrow against that to build, to go to the next phase? Is that how you leveraged up? I'm just curious, because it sounds like that was like the tipping point to get you into the bigger multifamily. Is that what you did?
No, man. You know what? I just did a cash out refinance on that for the first friggin' time just in the last few months.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
I had it almost paid off. Look, guys, I'm like non-traditional, like straight up non-traditional. I didn't have no business partners. I raised no capital whatsoever until 2018. Wow. I built a net worth of about $40 million out with my own money, working my ass off. Stupidest way to do it, stupidest way to do it. I just worked hard, man. And I got traditional financing. I leveraged bank money and my own capital to do it. I did it the old school way. And I just didn't really understand about raising capital. I didn't know I could do it. I didn't know how to do it. And in 2016, I started hearing about it. 2018, I really hyper-focused on learning about it. And now I don't use much of my own money to do these projects. I mean, I can walk in and do a $70 million build with about $1 million out of my own pocket and retain 100% of the equity in the whole damn thing.
So I wanted to talk about how you're essentially buying up. And I think I forget the year that you transitioned in this, but maybe you could talk to it. But now don't you turn distressed hotels into multifamily apartments?
Distressed assets, hotels and stuff as well. COVID, we started doing this before COVID. So we started looking at distressed retail initially when retail started going down. The problem with retail originally was that when we went to the municipalities, they were not embracive they were still in denial in like 2017, 18, that retail was dead. We were telling them it's dead. Like, I mean, you have 45 acres and 400,000 square feet of dead retail here. Like, it needs to be scraped, right? Like, let's reposition this. And the zoning was a nightmare. It was taking us like multiple years to try to get these things done. They fought us. So instead of fighting it, we went to the next closest asset class, and that was distressed hotels. And so, as you guys both know, there's you drive by any major city and there's distressed hotels. Now there's less, because in COVID, we were doing this before COVID. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit, and then everybody jumped on that bandwagon. So it became extremely challenging to find these assets. And then once the city and municipalities were getting a bunch of activity from investors and developers to reposition these, they started halting a little bit because they didn't want all this multifamily out of these hotels, because there's master plans, of these. So we started getting a little bit of resistance, so much so that we went an entire year in 2000 not finding one distressed hotel that worked for our business model. So then we started pivoting again. One of our projects that I have going on in Phoenix right now is a 104 unit development. And it was 38,000 square feet of distressed office building. We leveled 11,000 square feet of it, and we turned the remaining 20 some odd thousand square feet into 44 one-bedroom units. And then we went vertical with 60 new units on site, a mixture of ones and twos. And that one's going to be stabilized and finished by spring of 2023. We're vertically erecting the 60 units of new build right now as we speak, and the 44 units are done.
Love it. So I think that, just candidly listening to your story, it's really, really inspiring. And I think that it's almost like a level that I don't even know that Ryan and I can fathom at the stage that we're at. So what I want to ask you, the question specifically, is like, what do you think it was during your process of building up to this level that helped accelerate? Because you mentioned you did this yourself for like the longest time, which is incredible. So like, what do you think if there were, let's say somebody wants to jump right into bigger multifamily, because you can do that today. You don't have to start with duplexes and triplexes. Let's say somebody off the street who's listening to the show wants to get in. What advice would you give them in this market to try to make their entryway, besides being an absolute savage like you are? Like, what's the
secret sauce?
Yeah, what's the secret sauce? Maybe there isn't any, but what do you think?
It's time. You got to resume these projects, right? Everybody wants everybody wants the glory immediately. You guys got to understand, I've been at this game since 1993, the entrepreneurial game, right? So my overnight success has taken me almost 30 years.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
I made a lot of mistakes. I wish I understood how money worked. My recommendation to anybody that is looking at this going, damn, I want to get to that level, is it's simple. In 4 years, it can be life-changing. 4 years. But it'll take you every bit of 2 to 4 years to get there, hands down. I don't think you'll be able to do it in less than that. And the reason why is because you need to know what banks are looking for. You got to understand how money really works. And the way it works for small deals is the same way it works for big deals to a certain degree. But once you get to institutional money, where institutions look at assets, then it changes things tremendously. And you realize that the banks really work with you almost like a partner. But they want to make sure that you can fulfill what you're trying to do. Like they just won't go to Joe Schmo and say, oh yeah, I've done a fourplex. I want to do 150 units. They're going to resume you. Like they're going to say, okay, what qualifies you to do that? So there's a barrier of entry, right? And so I tell people, get with people that have experience. Don't be afraid to give up some equity in the beginning. Some people get selfish. Give some skin in the game. Because I always tell people, without the right partners, you might find somebody who's a damn good contractor but doesn't know anything about the multifamily space, but they've built it for people. So you partner with a contractor that knows how to build it, and then you get good at the asset management. You get good at the property management, asset management. You get good at syndicating and raising capital, and let them build it for you. Because without that builder, without that resume, you can't build it. The thing that I had going for me is I had the experience on both ends. I was a contractor. I had built it before, so that's how I got into it. And then I had also bought my multifamily apartments. I didn't even know what they were doing for me at the time, but I had managed them. So I had the asset management, then I had it. And then the first one that we built was 100 units. And then from there, we went up, and I said, okay, now we got to get over 200 units. So now everything that we're doing is over 200 units. But I'm bold. Most people, I've been bold my whole life. I don't tell people to do that. I mean, I'm confident in what I can produce. Like I'm a worker. And a lot of people, even though they think they're workers, they're not, and one of my superpowers is that I am a worker. If I get put in a bad position and a deal's not going to go through, I will make it go through. Where if some people get put in that position, they're just fucked. They're screwed, they finish it, and the whole thing will go bankrupt. I won't let it go bankrupt. I've already lived so much. Through what I went through in the recession, I know that I have the capabilities. As long as God gives me help, I will finish that asset. And so, for anybody coming in, you have to be willing, one, to learn. And there's some learning to do, as you guys know. You guys are in the space. It just doesn't happen overnight. There's a lot of learning to do. And so when people don't just go to work. Like start learning this stuff. Watch good podcasts like this. Watch and learn from people that are doing it and are teaching it. And watch from successful people only. Don't only listen to what people say, but watch what they're actually doing. And if they're doing what you want to learn, that's huge. Like that's what you want to be doing. Don't just be learning from any dipshit giving you information on a podcast. Learn from people that are actually doing it, because that's what you'll reciprocate success from.
It's great advice. A lot of people, they always research real estate, right? And like, how do I get in? And like, how do I master real estate? But I think a lot of it can be attributed to business and learning how a business is run. Do you have any thoughts on that and like kind of separating the two? And then would you like master one before going into the other?
I don't know, master. I think you kind of master both together. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. Don't try to be the master of anything when you go in. Just know that there's going to be a learning lesson. What I tell people is be willing to sacrifice a little bit of profits to learn. And not all your profits, right? Like you need to be as profitable, but 100%. Any one piece of real estate is a business, whether it's a single family home and you're brand new going into a single family rental home, that home is a business. You have to be able to underwrite it as a business. And so if it doesn't cash flow, that one house doesn't cash flow, and you don't know what your ROI is going to be, your return on investment, and you don't know like how you're going to service debt if that asset is dry, meaning that it's not leased, then don't buy it. Okay. Same thing as you get into multiple units. If you go into a retail center, if you go into a fourplex, sixplex, know what your attrition rate is on there so that you underwrite it with a worst case scenario and you underwrite it with variables. Like right now, we're living in a perfect time that can explain this, right? We are truly living in a recessionary market now. Mass layoffs are happening. If you just Google layoffs in the United States 2-3 weeks ago, the Biden administration was still fighting the fact that we weren't in a real recession because labor was still, unemployment was still really low. Well, that's shifting. In the last week alone, whenever this is aired, we're here in mid-August. So whenever this is aired, we're living in a transitional period right now. So how do we underwrite stuff right now? That's the question. Like, I'm sure people are asking that question right now. Like, Jerome, how are you guys underwriting these deals? Well, one, we're in a great, we service a great asset class, affordable housing. I'm building Class A apartments that compete with Class B rents. So it's affordable, man. That's what people need right now. And so I'm not putting swimming pools and amenities in my apartment complexes. It's really affordable work-class housing, but it's new. So people like that. I can compete with B-class rents. And then what we do is we go in and we underwrite things in a compressed market. When we started underwriting these, I said, what if rents compress by 10%? I've been talking about interest rates going up for almost a year now. And one of my business partners, he was like, Jerome, we can underwrite this as a 5 cap. I was like, bullshit. I'm underwriting it as a 7 cap. If it doesn't pencil a 7 cap, I ain't interested in it. So I want to be making sure that I have enough equity going into these things to afford a 10% rent compression and also not only a 10% rent compression, but higher cap rates. Yep. If they make sense, I might not be able to do a cash out refi on my deal. I might be stuck with my equity in the deal, but you'll get it. But if it pencils,
if you hold long enough, then that will work itself out, right? I mean, I know you had something, right? But I'm just curious about your thoughts on actually, because you're so big in the real estate game, I'm curious about your thoughts on the recession and how you think, just based on what you know. I mean, obviously you don't have a crystal ball, but like what you think, how that will affect real estate. And I know that multifamily could be affected different than single family, but I know from just speaking to a bunch of different real estate investors that a lot of them don't think there's going to be like this big dip in the values of real estate. But I'm curious, maybe you think differently. What is your take on what you think the next, 12 to 24 months could bring?
I don't think that we'll have huge dips. I think that we have the potential to hit huge dips. The potential is there, right? So some of it's out of our control. Our administrators, our politicians, they have ultimate control of what happens. Our central banks, even more so than them. But policymakers, our hands are in there. I would like to believe that they're smart enough to really understand what's going on here. And they're not that smart, but I want to say that they're smart enough because most of them are investors too, right? So you got to understand, Democrat, Republican, they're investors too. They exercise a lot of the same tax laws and real estate laws that you and I are exercising. So understand that first and foremost. They're supporting and advocating for the central banks who are funding the big institutions. Like look what's happening in China right now, right? With the Evergrande, all that stuff that's happening. That's all money laundering, man. Like you and I would go to prison for that shit if we did that. But yet a country does it, their central banks do it, and they lend money out like that. And now they make excuses, right? But if you and I took out capital, we went and invested in something, and then we took the money that was supposed to go to allocate it for that asset and used it for a different asset, we go to jail for money laundering. Okay. We get indicted for that stuff. Now, that's not what's happening in China, but that our central banks work the same way. What do you think, like Greystone, BlackRock, all these companies that are the big dogs in here? These guys are running our banks, right? And so these are the guys that are the mass majority of their assets. Like you guys won't even hear about this, but like BlackRock just wrote off something like $4 billion worth of assets. And you don't even hear about it on the news. You don't even hear about that.
No, I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, if you just go and you Google right now, BlackRock, like BlackRock's multi-billion-dollar write-off, like a little tiny article will come up. Like you don't even see it, right? So our central banks are doing that. It's you and I that are paying for that stuff, and the American people, but we don't hear about that stuff. So these guys are smart. They know what they're doing. They're going to let it dip. We got to get inflation. The biggest concern right now, more so than the recession, is inflation. It still hasn't come down. We need that. We need the labor market pool to be a little bit stronger. And so as that stuff starts to balance out, I think we'll be good. And I think the central banks, by the time all this happens, I think that our recessionary market will shift. Our GDP will go back up and things will shift. But if we do that right now, what people have to understand is that inflation is still going to go through the roof. The average American's screwed. So as much as people hate to talk about this recession, we need it right now. Like, I don't care what anybody says. We need this recession right now.
And do you think that I'm asking this because I'm curious on your take on this. Do you think we need it because we were supposed to go into a recession 2.5 years ago in the beginning of COVID, that we pumped money into, essentially gave the country drugs to pump us up, and we should have went into one then, which then in turn make a future recession a lot worse? Is that why you're saying you think we need it, just because it's so inflationary?
Well, that's what stimulated inflation. And
Right.
so, but inflation is bad right now. I mean, even houses, I mean, yes, as an investor, I want to see this stuff go up. I want to see my assets go up. But at some point, there's a threshold of diminishing return where we become communist from it, right? Like people can't afford homes.
Right.
I mean, I might be one of them that can still do it, and I'm the wealthy, but then how does that affect us as a country? How does that affect our banks? How does that affect our regulations? How does that affect everything? So yeah, we don't want to see inflation go up anymore. I mean, it's bad. It's as bad as it is right now. People have been able to pull through it thus far. I think there's going to be a little bit of blood in the water. There's a ton of opportunity for investors. I think that this recession is going to be shorter lived than what we saw in 2008 still, but there's going to be enough opportunity. And I think the best thing that's going to come out of this recession is, one, our labor pool is going to be better, which is the best thing that came out of the 2008 recession. And then the inflationary values of goods and services was going to come back down. And when that happens, we'll be able to capture our gains in two ways. Okay. So like here's your golden nuggets for everybody everybody listening right now. Here's your big golden nuggets. Okay. Don't worry about the recession. Worry about how you buy land and assets right now. Take advantage of the diminished values of assets. Like I build from ground up. So I always tell people my profits are in the land. So this is my perfect excuse to leverage land for what the market is bearing in variance. So when I build a single family home, for sake of example, if homes are going down by $30,000, I'm going to pay $30,000 less for the land, or I'm not buying it. So I don't take a profit cut. I'm not going to take a profit cut. I'll just won't pay as much for my land. I'm not going to pay the same amount for my land as I did 9 months ago. And then if the appreciated values go down, inflation goes down, then I'm building the house for $25 a square foot less than I was a year ago. And so if those two things happen, I'm not making less money. I'm making just as much money as I was making on our heyday during the recession. It's just how you buy and what you buy. That's what makes the difference. But as an educated investor, that's the variable. That's the stuff you got to educate yourself on.
Love that. I want to transition and talk about at least maybe an area of opportunity. And I think you've capitalized this on over the years. We talked retail space a lot, but then you also mentioned pre-recording that you got into the e-commerce space. And a lot of times Corey and I talk about the e-commerce space isn't like, hey, buying online businesses. What have you done to essentially like diversify your portfolio in that sphere? And then who have you partnered with? Because I think it's an incredible story.
Yeah. Diversification is advantageous. I always tell people, if you soak 100% of your money into real estate because you love it, you're just not a seasoned investor. You don't ever want to just stick it all your eggs in one basket. I learned this in multi-level marketing. You say get 10 distributors. That way, if 3 are having great months, 3 are having mediocre months, and 3 or 4 are having great months, it still evens out really good, right? And so I've always taken that into consideration as an investor. So I got into the e-commerce space and I wouldn't say on accident. I was methodical. I was trying to partner with big names, and I was buying my way to success. I had afforded the ability to do that by this point in time. And so I partnered with Ty Lopez and Dr. Alex Muir on some assets. I'm an equity owner of all the big brands that they've been buying, from Pier 1 Imports, Radio Shack, Model Sporting Goods, the Franklin Mint, all of them through retail e-commerce ventures. I own percentages of all those companies. And Ty and I partnered in the real estate space. We started, they needed warehouses for all of the big brands. So we incorporated a company called ESR, E-commerce Supporting Real Estate. So my office runs and facilitates ESR. And we're kind of the merger between the real estate that houses the big brands. And so I own equity in those, and it's just one small piece of the diversification in our entire portfolio. So we're taking advantage of that e-commerce space right now as well.
Very cool. What do you think? How does e-commerce play a role in the future, and what do you see happening to brick and mortar stores?
There's always going to be a need for brick and mortar stores. We're touch and fill nationwide. We want to see touch and fill. It's just that the way retail was done in the past is dead. You're not going to see that come back. I mean, big box malls and stuff, they're a thing of the past. I'd find it really hard to believe. We're going to see fulfillment centers that we're already seeing It's going to be more for housing, inventory, goods and services. As our population grows, it makes more sense. And they're going to have like kind of similar to what we're doing. We're hanging on to some of the brick and mortar, but on a small fashion. And we're doing hybrids. And those hybrids are going to be what the future holds, where you can walk into one location, you can try things on, and then you can order right from a kiosk. Like we're starting to see at restaurants now. You go to McDonald's, kiosks. You go into a lot of like sandwich shops and stuff, they have kiosks. You don't even go up. Now we're seeing it at the airports where you walk up, you don't even see an agent. We're seeing it at rental car places. You go and you order, you get your rental car from a kiosk. Same thing's going to happen. But instead of from your phone, you're going to be able to go to the up displays. You'll be able to try on shoes. You'll be able to try on clothes. And then it'll come off from a fulfillment center, come drop down a hatch, like the old little tube on the bank. And then you're going to get your stuff shipped right over to you immediately, or within 24 to 48 hours, you're going to have your product right at your doorstep. And then if you want to return it, you can just go to those fulfillment centers and return it there, so you don't have the hassle. E-commerce is not online shopping. It's logistics. And that's what people confuse. They're logistical companies, and it's going to be logistics that grows over the course of time, not retail. You got to think of it from a logistical standpoint. Like Amazon, people think of them as the largest retailer online. They're not. They're the largest logistic company online.
Yep.
Home Depot's already on board. Walmart is already on board. These guys, like Walmart, just did a mass layoff yesterday. Massive layoff. They won't rehire those people. They don't need to. Everything's done robotic. It's all done through computers. People that think they have job security better think again, because people like me who are sick of dealing with overprivileged employees that don't work, they're going to be a thing of the past. These fulfillment centers and stuff, we're going into logistical ages, where robotics and logistics. That's the big play in the future. So
that's a great transition, because it's so interesting. We get people asking us all the time about, hey, should I diversify out of real estate and buy an online, we call it an e-commerce store, right? Specifically Amazon, right? There's a lot of different types. So there's wholesale, FBA, drop shipping. I'm curious if you have any experience in those, and I'm maybe not just so from the warehouse or the back end side, but like if you own any stores yourself, or what your thoughts are for those in the future. Do you think those are a solid investment for people?
Yeah, you got to be careful. So I know like Walmart and Amazon both were shutting them down, right? I just tell people, like anything, do your homework so that you don't land up paying somebody to get into these online stores. I had some employees that worked for me, and I was mad at them, in fact, because they invested in someone helping them set up these Walmart stores, and they lost $40,000. Mm-hmm. And I told them, I was like, hey, you dipshit, like come check with me before you dump $40,000 into an online store and it goes under on you. So there's going to be regulation. So understand, you got to make, just like anything, just like real estate. Don't just go buy a house because it's a house, right? Like there's houses that I wouldn't take if they gave them to me for free. Okay. Because they're just bad investments. Like there's just a point of diminishing return, right? And I think that online stores are the same way, right? Like you got to know what's working, what's really working, do your homework. I'm not the person to ask about that, because I don't deal with day in, day out companies like that anymore. So I'm out of that game a little bit. So I'm a little further out of that. I'm now working on scaling, because I'm older, I'm pushing closer to my 50s right now. So I'm working at scaling. I'm working on trying to end the day in, day out stuff. But for people that are in the day in, day out stuff, I'll tell you this from experience. I was one of the largest Subway franchisees in the Southwest. I've owned a lot of companies, and it all comes down to numbers. You got to know where your numbers come from. You got to see them, know where, and you got to check and make sure that those numbers are real numbers and they're viable, and just do a little bit of homework and research. But yeah, I think it's a great model if people get involved with it. There's going to be a lot of middlemen. We live in a middleman world, man. There's a lot of revenue. 75% of what comes out, what you pay for a product, is caught up in middlemen's markup. The thing is, for people wondering about those online stores, is you just need to figure out how to get your hands on that 75%, or at least a piece of it.
Right. That's great advice. Thank you. I actually want to touch on this. We haven't talked franchises on the podcast as of recent. So can you talk about the process of like buying a franchise, and then do you own the real estate as well? I know you're savvy enough, so I assume you do. And with that, like, I know you buy like distressed business or distressed properties, right? Did you buy Subways that weren't performing, and then essentially you made them perform higher?
A little bit of all the above. So I got into Subway only because of our retail being empty in 2008. We had entire retail centers literally go 100% vacant, lost 100% of our leases that weren't even finished under construction yet. So we had strip malls that were open. So I became an Aveda certified, not salon, a beautician, but an Aveda certified. So I went and got my Aveda certification, opened up Aveda certified salons to put them in my retail centers. And then I went and started buying Subway stores to put them in my retail centers in any of the ones that would qualify, because there's some franchise rules as far as territories. So the ones that allowed me to, I put Subway stores in there and became a franchisee. But what I landed up doing was I needed an infrastructure. Like I didn't want to be making sandwiches. I didn't want to be like, hey, Jerome, hey, welcome to Subway. My name's Jerome. Do you want a BLT or do you want a turkey, ham, and cheese? Right? Like I didn't want to be making sandwiches. I wanted an infrastructure of employees, middle management. So I had to get to 15 stores. That was my deal. So I bought distressed stores. I bought pre-existing stores. I bought non-distressed stores like in the malls that were just killing it. Overpaid for some of them because I needed to. So I did a little bit of all of the above. Put some in my buildings, bought some distressed, and I bought some that were doing well.
Wow, love it. Very cool.
Cool. I think I want to talk about your time and your time management too off all this. Like just listening to you talk, I'm like, there's so much going on, especially at this phase in your life you have, and all the different investments. Like, I guess maybe one of the cool things that you might be able to advice that you might be able to give people that are listening is like, how do you prioritize your time? Right. I mean, you and I first of all, it's late on the East Coast. It's getting late on your side. We're doing a podcast and you have back-to-back calls. I mean, we talked about this. I know you kind of have to get after it, but like, are there certain ways that you prioritize your time now that helps you organize your day?
Yeah, it is. So I take one thing at a time. What's most important? Like when I get off of this, I'm flooded with probably WhatsApps and text messages and emails. And so I'll skim through them and I'll get back to everything that is like time sensitive. Like we're raising capital for a project right now. That's important to me. Right. Mm-hmm. I have a trip to Dallas next week where there's some phone calls that need to be made to set up a couple more appointments with different people that need to be made. That's a priority to me. Then we have then my office stuff that's ongoing where it can cost me money. So I go with new business is always first business. Okay. Existing business is always second business. And then existing business becomes first priority when you're not managing it correctly. Because my philosophy is if you can't manage what you already have, what are you doing getting new business? All right.
Right.
New business is always first priority until existing business slacks. And when existing business slacks, it becomes first priority. So you have to know when to pivot on that stuff. But family always comes first. My kids are getting a little bit older now, so they don't need me as much. As sad as I hate saying that. Like my son had an 11-hour day-to-day at school, from 0 hour to football to school to after school. So he's out now. So now my time becomes more important with my family. So as I go pick him up, I literally will take the time to just answer everything that's super important. I'll make notes of what I need to take care of first thing in the morning. But everybody's gone. So I'll just figure out my sequence of order after my son goes to bed and my daughter goes to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock tonight. And then I'll spend 30, 45 minutes just getting organized. So then I wake up tomorrow. I just wake up like a machine. And in an hour, I'll have more done than most people get done in a week in 1 hour in the morning, because I just know what I'll hit everything in 1 hour. I'll literally sit for an hour. I'll sit in my underwear for an hour if I need to. And I'll literally just answer text messages, emails, and WhatsApp and just delegate. And I just spend the first hour of my morning delegating things out and doing follow-ups with everything I need to do, starting from the East Coast, migrating to the West Coast. So
it's really cool. And everyone has like a different thing they do. You know, there's always like this, like I don't know if you've read of Miracle Morning and stuff. I personally literally I get up and I drink water and I start to work because I don't have this like routine that I get into. But I'm curious, like you look like you're in shape, you look like you work out. Like how do you find the time to like do those things that I value as important to me? I know when I find that time to do them, but I don't think my day is as packed as you are. Is that just something that you're like non-negotiable? Like It's not. That's like staying. I told my wife when we met 21 years ago, I told her, don't ask. There's one thing I asked for. Don't ask for that hour. That hour is mine. Right. That hour, that's my hour, man. Don't interfere with that. That's mine. You take that away from me, I don't want to be married. I don't want anything. If I can't give myself 1 hour, what the fuck am I doing in my life that I can't give myself? I feel the same way.
That's my philosophy. It's like, man, if I can't give myself that 1 hour, I'm doing things way wrong, you know? So I fit it in. and I make sure, and I do it about the same time every day, but I stretch every morning now. That's my 20-minute deal. And I'm doing calls while I'm stretching. If I'm sitting in a stretch for 30 seconds, I'm looking through text messages. I'll literally be on the floor stretching. I'm looking at text messages. And I'll say, okay, stay focused, off the phone for 5 more minutes. Let's get through this set of my stretches. Then I'll sit in another stretch and I'll do it. And I'll get distracted with my text and say, okay, let's finish out. And then I do 150 push-ups every morning religiously. And then I go about my day. And then I get out of that, and then I get going, and then I hit everything that I'm doing. So I'm kind of doing multiple things simultaneously.
Got it. Yeah.
Very cool. I want to talk about this. It kind of coincides a little bit, but it's just any tips and tricks for systematizing your business. So for example, Corey and I have like 3 different businesses that we're running. Obviously they're not as quite scaled as where you are, but at times it is a little bit hard to delegate, right? When it's just kind of like a 2-headed beast on certain things, and then putting systems in place and then trying to find a way to scale while still managing. Well, I mean, we're still have our 9-to-5 jobs too, on the side. So not on the side, but that's kind of how it feels. Yeah. But yeah, so just like thoughts on systematizing and like kind of like getting your thing running like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, super important. So I'm like an old dinosaur. So I was a poster child for somebody that didn't keep up with the times. And I paid for it. I mean, some of my business, I still pay for it today. I tell you guys that I'm probably not as systematized as I should be, but what I have done to account for that is I want less employees the older I get. Okay. I've had my day of managing people. I don't want to manage employees anymore. I want to manage businesses. So for example, when I build my developments, I hire one admin and I just manage that one admin and we manage paper. And so like I'll hire a property management company and I'll bring them on before I even turn dirt. There's nothing to manage. I don't have no tenancy. I have dirt, but I bring in a property management company and I pay them $2,500 a month. And because where do you get an employee for $2,500 a month, first and foremost? Okay. Yeah. So I onboard a company that has systems set in place that I don't have. And then I do my payables through them. So like my whole construction process, I'm paying architects, engineers, I'm paying all my survey companies, everybody all the way along the line. I send all the invoices, I check them, I approve them, and then I send them to my property management company on that one facility. Then they cut the check. And then at the end of every month, I get a reconciliation of all of that. So I don't have to do the account. I get like a free accountant for not free, but like almost free for $2,500 a month. Like, shit, I can't get that anywhere. And because they're efficient and they have systems set in place that I don't have, they can do what it's going to cost me $60,000 to $100,000 to hire somebody. Now I have to manage that person. And that's the only thing that one person does. Now they can do stuff I can't put together myself. So I've learned how to figure out systems internally to onboard other people that have their own systems that are better than mine and hire them. And it's more efficient. Same thing with contractors. I was the contractor. I'm no longer the contractor. Now I hire contractors and I learn how to go in. I manage them instead of all their subs. And I just go in and sit down. I don't have that notebook in here, but I'll write down. I'll sit down with them for lunch and I'll say, okay, I'm in town. Let's sit down. Let's walk the project and let's sit down. Let's go through where we are with the project and let's run through dates. And then all I do is I hold them accountable on those dates and say, hey, do you got these people, is the roofers lined up? Is the concrete guys lined up? And I manage that one person, that one contractor, and then I let them go to work and manage their systems and their people.
Cool. Love that. I mean, that was the magic question, right? Yep. It was like, how do you find the right people? I'm just thinking like even the property management company, for example, there's a lot of investors listening to the show and they're debating probably continuing to self-manage or go get a property manager. We've had a lot of different advice here. We have a property manager right now. And to be candid, we're making way less cash flow because we're paying them a lot. And unfortunately, they don't care as much about our properties as we do. And so they'll let someone for a stupid plumbing mistake, like plumbing issue, charge $400. And then we're like, all right, that property was only going to cash flow 6. Now we're down to 2 or less. So just kind of want your thoughts there.
That's a great point. I dealt with all that when I started getting into my fourplexes. And I mean, I literally would put in new air conditioners on apartments that had evaporative cooling. In Phoenix, mind you, at just 115 degrees, and evaporative coolers decrease the outside air by 15 degrees. So it's still like 100 degrees inside these houses, right? So we're putting refrigerated air And to your point, we would get bills, and I get invoices like, what the hell? That thing has a brand new air conditioner. Why are we getting a $700 bill on an air conditioner where I have a brand new air conditioner? That thing's under warranty. And it's because they were stealing parts from one air conditioner and putting them in another air conditioner. And it wasn't the property management company, but it was their people that were doing it. And then they were invoicing us for parts and labor. And they were taking the parts for my vacant units that were brand new. And we didn't know until they were filled. And then when they were filled, all of a sudden we had these magical issues. Right. So the way you kind of dissolve that I still manage 11 retail centers locally because I have the office to do it. That's all we manage is those 11 retail centers. It's like 48 units total of retail that we manage still. We've been doing it for a long time. So we've kept those, but like our multifamily and stuff, once you scale over like 60 units, you really need to onboard a property management company in one property. If you have like 60 some units and it's all like spread out, you're never going to get a good property management company because good property management companies, they don't want that mess. That's going to be for you. That's why I tell people that scaling is so important because there's a certain point where you're young, you do it. And then you get to a point where you're like, screw this, I'm done doing this. And then you scale up. It's so much easier to scale up. People don't understand this, but just as much work goes into the bank loans, the capital raises, the value add, the construction, everything on a 10 unit deal as does a 100 unit deal. The only difference is your margin spread is significantly larger on 100 units, and you can hire a good property management company to run it for you, where you don't have to worry about trying to negotiate with a mom and pop property management company to do it for you. That'll give you the exact same problems that I've experienced and both of you have experienced and a ton of the people watching this podcast have experienced.
So with last question for me is on these bigger deals, right? The scale up, like what would a great property manager charge you to run one of your like 100 unit deals? Like what percentage?
2.5%, depends. It depends how much they're doing. I mean, we can negotiate down as low as 1.5. I get leery when they negotiate down that low because when you pay a significant fee, you pay an insignificant fee, then I become less of a priority than somebody that's paying them what they want to make. So I believe in paying people, what they want to make. And so but some of the property management companies will charge you guys 8% when you don't have enough units.
Yep.
And so you're going to have a spread between 2 and 8% is typically your spread. And I know that's a big spread number, but it all comes down to the value of time, right? Like when you only have a few units, but they're occupied having to run down to service 10 units. Again, hence my point on why it's important to scale up, because as you scale up, you can have an on-site property manager and a management company, and they have systems set in place, and your cost goes substantially lower. So for 2.5%, you're getting these guys to manage it. But like I always tell people, underwrite your management fees at 40%. That should be your management and maintenance fees, and you'll be good. If you can underwrite them at 40%, you'll be good. Our new builds, it usually costs us about 30 to 32% to run them because they're new. But we don't have as much maintenance. So the management's the same, maintenance is not. So our fees are still less though by about almost 10%.
Got it. So you're saying that essentially you're going to take 40% of your revenue and it's going to go to maintenance and management, right? That's that number that you're giving. That's our underwriting number for everything. We underwrite everything like that, whether it's going to cost us that or not, because that's the national average. That's what's going to be about your. Makes total sense. I love that. You want to go to the core four?
Let's do it.
Cool. So the last four questions, well, we have the second to last segment of the show, core four, get to know you a little bit more personally as we wind down the show. But it's clearly you've done so much. I'm curious if you could nail down, is there a book maybe that you would recommend people if they want to get started, they want to move their business forward? Is there something that spoke to you as you started to grow your business book, whether it's real estate or business? Yeah. So like I said, I'm a little bit old school, but I'm simple. I'm a simple guy. I'm dyslexic. I'm not a big reader. I listen. I do a lot of audiobooks. Yeah. And so I do a lot of learning, and I listen to not current news, but I read a lot of articles. Mostly they're published by reputable agencies. So I recommend a lot of that if you're learning this space, like the National Association of Home Builders. Great information there because it's all real life information. National Association of Realtors, because there's a lot of real information. These are like lobbyists that are going out lobbying for the laws that you and I have to live by. I read a lot of that stuff like daily. New York Times. And, a lot of the big publications, business publications, I read that stuff.
But books in general, the basic book of Think and Grow Rich is one of the best books out there. It's an oldie, but I'll tell you guys by far, that should be one of your first books that you should read multiple times as you're getting started in business in general. My personal favorite book is called Rhino Success. In Rhino Success by Scott Alexander is just that book is awesome. It's me in a nutshell. It talks about a rhino, and it's like the optimum animal for business and success. And it compares it to cows and the herd of cows being people, and how a rhino lives. They're vegetarians, they're calm, they're cool and collective. But if you mess with them, they'll jack you up.
Got it. I like that.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
This next question will be funny. We have to up the, maybe somebody getting started.
Might have to up the dollar amount here, but this is traditionally what we ask. So I'm curious your thoughts here. If we give you an additional $50,000 today in cash, tax-free, how would you use it? Whether you're spending it, investing it, just like divvy up the pie for us. And if you're saying, hey, it's not going to impact me enough to even go there, maybe what you'd recommend for someone, an up and coming investor, and how they should potentially, invest that or get that thing, get a business off the ground with it. I don't know. Up to you.
Bro, I'll always take 50 grand.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, there you go.
I'm never going to say no to 50 grand. So for $50,000, if I was somebody getting started with $50,000, you could do so much, because I didn't have anything when I got started. $50,000, if you invest it right, can go a long way. So I'm a big buy land, build house guy. I mean, it makes a lot of money. And so I'm not a fix and flipper. I never have. I hate it. I don't like the fix and flip game. I've tried it. I've never made good margins on it. I make more money with new construction. That's why we have an online course teaching people how to buy land and build houses and make a 6-figure profit. With 50 grand, I can teach you how to get out of the ground and make a $150,000, $200,000 profit with that $50,000 in like 6 months. I can teach you how to turn that capital twice and make yourself 200 grand with that $50,000.
Love that. That's
a great
awesome.
answer.
Well, we'll talk more about that as we wind down the show. But so this is a good question you told me you made a lot of mistakes, right? So I'm curious is, what do you think the biggest mistake is that you've made in your investing journey? And maybe how have you learned from it?
Not going big enough, quick enough, guys. I mean, I know people want to go big quick, but when I decided to really scale this thing in 2016, it took me 4 years to really figure out how to scale it, even at that time. In the last 2 years, we just went gangbusters, but we were making moves between 2016 and 2020, but the moves were still slow because we were figuring stuff out. But once we figured it out, by 2018, I figured a little more out, and I figured out what I needed to do for the next couple of years. What I thought was going to be 1 year, it's taking me 2 years. I always add a little extra time, because it's always going to take you more. It's always going to take you 2 years longer than you think it's going to take you, hands down. And you talk to any good business guy, when you put a 2-year goal together, just know it's going to take you 2 years longer to get to where you really want to get. And so we moved. I would say just go big earlier in your career.
Cool. Thank you. Last question on the core for is, what do you want your legacy to be? So what gets you out of bed every morning to do what you do? And I guess, what's your why?
Yeah, my why is my family, my kids now. And that was my big thing. This whole second push was, I was still married to we did great financially. No one was going to feel sorry for us, but to continue that revenue stream that we had from our construction company, which we still own today, I have to get up every morning. I got employees I got to manage, and we can't travel as much because I take my foot off the pedal. I leave for 2 weeks. I come back, things are a mess. And I just didn't want to be that guy when my kids go to college that I was stuck here. And so my why was to figure out how to scale big and really get my assets right, where my passive income is really where it needed to be, so that I could travel with my kids. Like I promised my wife, when my son goes to college and my daughter goes to college, I want to be able to go wherever the hell they are, have houses in those cities. We've taught them, don't limit yourself to where we're at locally. Go and expand yourself. And I want to teach him this game. My son is starting to get it now that he's in high school. He sees it. My daughter still ain't there yet. My daughter's going to be a billionaire, according to her, which I think she can be that. She doesn't know how. She's going to be a billionaire by being an interior decorator, right? And I go, well, instead of being an interior decorator, why don't you just like build big fancy buildings? No, I want to do houses, right? She doesn't get it yet. She's still too young. She will get it in due time. Yeah. And my son now is going, Daddy, I don't want to do the construction thing, but I want to learn the real estate stuff you do. He sees it. He gets it.
Love it. That's awesome. And I'm having a situation. I don't have any kids, but my younger brother's 10 years younger than me. He's 20. So he's starting to ask the right questions and get involved in it too. So it's very cool that you're able to pass that along to your children. Cool. So it looks like we made it to the last drop. and you kind of answered this a little bit, but in the last drops, the last question of the show, and we want to know if you could look your 18-year-old self in the mirror, 20-year-old self, go back in time, what advice would you give your younger self? Maybe 18-year-old Jerome.
Yeah. I would say to be more open to educating yourself directly into business. I didn't know anything about business. My 18-year-old self knew nothing. I just knew like everybody else, right? Go to school, get a good education. I didn't go get a good job, the highest paying job I could get. I would tell that 18-year-old Jerome, you need to learn how wealthy people become wealthy. I didn't know that. I didn't know I could learn that stuff. I didn't know that it was available to me. Yep. I would tell myself, learn how they did it and duplicate that. That's what I tell the 18-year-old Jerome. Because for years, even when I was getting wealthy, I don't know, was I really wealthy? It took me forever to get even where I am now. I went too small for too long, and I was trying to do it myself. And that's the second thing I tell myself is say, open yourself to surrounding yourself with good partners, but never partner with broke partners. Partner with people that have something. They have to bring something to the table. Money or talent.
Cool. Sound advice.
Yeah, love that, man. Love that. So first of all, it's been a pleasure to get to know you, to learn your story, to learn how you've grown these businesses. I think it's really inspiring. I know you have, if people want to reach out to you or they want to learn about you, maybe network, tell people what's the best way to get in touch with you. But also, I know you have a summit that you want to talk about that's in Las Vegas that kind of maybe that will help people learn more about you and what you're doing, and maybe people are interested. So just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm really easy to find. My name has been on the bottom of the screen here on this podcast the entire time. Just put that into any social media platform and then like and subscribe, and I'll be in your household every single day.
There you go.
We'll be in your feed every single day. Every time you open your phone, you're going to see my face. So that's one easy way to find me. But the second thing is I only do one event a year, and I don't speak on a lot of stages because I'm so busy. I will here and there for friends. But if you guys want to hear me from stage and really get to know what we have going on and real insight and my surrounding of attorneys, professional property managers, investors, and people that are really doing stuff. And we're bringing some really cool celebrities to the table this year as well. So it's kind of add some fun to it. You guys need to hit Real Estate Domination. So last year that I'm going to be hosting Real Estate Domination, we're going to change the entire event after this year. It's going to get a little bit more advanced after this year. So if you're a newbie and you want to learn this game and learn how we scale, Real Estate Domination is going to be for you. Don't be intimidated by my experience. I've just been here I've been doing this stuff for almost 30 years. But I didn't start this way. So we go down to the nitty gritty and for people in any walks of life, from getting started all the way up to the professional investor, we're bringing in a group of people. They're not polished speakers. They are doers. They're people in the industry that are really making money. We're not going to sell you stuff. It's not a sales event. All this is a full value event. And it's going to teach you the real estate development game. I talk a lot about new development, new construction, the difference between existing assets and new assets and the development thereof. And we have a lot of people that are in the value add space, from single family homes, fix and flippers, all the way up to multi-million-dollar developments and everything in between. So great event, Las Vegas, Nevada, November 4th, 5th, and 6th at the MGM Grand Garden Casino. And it's going to be a great event. We'll put a link in here someplace where you click on it and find it if you guys want to partake in it.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Weekly Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram at Weekly Juice Pod, where we post daily tips and tricks and document our own journey towards financial freedom. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday to get your weekly juice.